Welcome everyone to today's webinar. You're joining the Vivid organization, and we have an event today around AppPulse, and the title is A Smarter App Monitoring Solution to Deliver One Fantastic User Experience, Synthetic, Real User, and Transaction Tracing Integration Solution. Next. This webinar is brought to you by HP Enterprise. Next. I will be your host today. My name is Rocky Pisto. I'm a SIG and chapter leader for a long time, and supporting the HPE software webinar series. Next. Our speakers today are Monica Benjamin. She's the Director in Product Marketing for HP Enterprise, and Yudi Shagal, who's focused on the AppPulse product. He's a product manager for HP Enterprise as well. Those are our speakers today. Next. So a little housekeeping. This live session is being recorded. So the recording's made available to all Vivid members in the future. So if you weren't able to attend this session, even though you did register, you will have an opportunity to hear it in the recorded area. There is a questions panel. So if you have questions, feel free to type them so we can get some real-time, real-live answers to your questions. Next slide. And here is the control panel where you'll see the question/chat area. Feel free to type in your questions. And if we can get to them today, we will. If not, they will be answered in the follow-up with the recorded session, and you'll have access to it in a few days. Next. So I think, do we have a polling question to kick it off? So yes, we do. So here's the question. In your organization, who is ultimately held accountable for the user experience? And please select one of the following: development team or DevOps team, QA and testing team, IT operations team, business/marketing organization, or dedicated customer experience teams. Okay. So let's take 60 seconds to select that area, and it kind of will give us an idea of, where in your organization this area or the end user experience scenario is responsible for. It'll help our panelists figure that out and kind of focus around that, if you will, in the presentation. So I think we should be pretty close. Terry, let's see what the results are. So great. So I'm not sure if my panelists can see this, but at this time, it looks like 20% is coming out of the development teams or DevOps team, 10% out of QA or testing. IT operations team, which to me makes most sense, is about 27%. And then some organizations, it's really coming from the business or marketing organizations. That's 24%. And then, that's interesting, many companies have a dedicated customer experience team. So that represents 20%. So overall, the various organizations have a pretty even mix of where the accountability for the end user experience is. So great, good feedback. Next. So with that, I think I will hand this over to Monica.
Thank you, Rocky.
All yours. You bet.
Thank you. So welcome everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're dialing from. We're really excited, myself and Udi, to be here to talk to you about HP Outpulse. Outpulse is our application performance management solution within HP software. And what I'm going to be walking you through today is, what does it mean to have a fantastic user experience? How do we define that, and how do we measure that? So one of the things that we talk about from a user experience standpoint is it's not just a destination. It's not something that you just arrive at. An experience is something that you experience along the way. So when we thought about that metaphor, we thought about a road trip, taking a road trip. When you get into a car to take a road trip, it's very different than when you get in your car to get into the office. One is something that you just do on autopilot, you know where you're going. The other one is an experience you're waiting to have. If you think about it, you're driving either by, and I live in California, you're driving by the ocean, and you're thinking about everything that is happening around you, you're taking it in, and it's a delightful experience. So if you think about it from that standpoint, we want the user experience to be a delight. The users need to love their experience. Something that I say, and my team, always makes fun of me, as I say, from the finger to the eye, we want to measure. We want to measure from the time a user swipes on their phone to the minute that information is received and they can view it. And so a superb user experience is important to everybody's organization. You want the customers to be happy. You don't want to see those bad reviews on your applications on the App Store. You don't want ticket after ticket coming in because something has failed. So you want to ensure that the experience you're providing your customers is smooth and they're enjoying, as they're walking through it. Now, think about it from back to the road trip standpoint. If you're driving around the ocean, how do you feel? Now, what happens when something goes wrong? What happens when you hit a detour on your road trip, or you happen to get a flat tire? All of those things will now negatively impact what you're perceiving as your experience. And so we've actually charted a study around that. And when we looked at the cost of application downtime, it was no joke. It's, you're looking at Gartner cited 336,000 loss an hour. And as you can see the numbers here, no one can afford the cost of your application downtime, because when users can't access your application, then most of the time they will get rid of the application. I know I do. We've always said this. No one goes to the App Store to download a one-star application. So when we talk about user experience, it is the new SLA. It's the way that you can measure yourself and how your customers are measuring you. And a few of the things that you need to think about when you're trying to fulfill user expectations is aesthetics. You want something that is visually appealing to the eye. You want a wow factor. You want to, for someone to say, wow, that was so easy. I can't believe I just did that. Playfulness, something that it's a fun experience. It makes you smile. And I think one of the most important things is empowerment. Whenever we provide our customers with a service or with an application in this point, you want them to feel empowered and in charge of what they're doing, and the either it's the drop down they're choosing, or it's if you're trying to deposit a check, you want all that to be a smooth, seamless experience, and you want to ensure that the application is working, so it's fulfilling its purpose of why it was created. It's easy to use. It's not, you don't have to go get a manual to try to figure it out. And value, right? You are actually getting value out of the application. So who needs this? Within the organization, we've talked about different groups, and Rocky asked the polling question earlier. IT ops want to find and fix the issues before tickets start to come in. The last person you want to tell you something is wrong with your service or your application is your customer. Now, if you think about it from the business standpoint, the application they create, that's their reputation. That is their face and their brand. And the last thing they want to do is go to the App Store and see these negative reviews around something that they've put, their heart and soul into creating. And then you have this DevOps team that brings these two groups together. They bring the IT ops team and the business team together. And they need to understand and get visibility down to the root cause of the user action to the line of code. They want to be sure that they know exactly where the problem is and how to solve it. Now, one of the most important things we understand is communication. And within Outpulse, one of the amazing things is it's such an intuitive tool and easy to use, but it also can be used as a communication tool. More and more we're seeing the customers that are emerging that are very interested in the solution is actually the marketing organization, because they need to have that common perspective and common language to share what's going on. So if you're not doing DevOps, if you're actually not measuring the user experience, then you're actually missing out on real data that can help you change your business. When we talked about experience, picture yourself actually going on Amazon.com. And let's say you start your order on the phone, you get to the office, you switch to your laptop or your computer, and now you're on your browser. And then you add whatever it is you are buying in your cart. And in my case, it's always a pair of shoes. If you added something to your cart and you check out and you walk away from your computer, the user experience doesn't end. They still, the customer, I know I'm guilty of this. If I'm purchasing something, let's say my digital interaction is done with that application, my expectations are not done until I physically receive the box. I'm still going to be judging whether it's Amazon or whether I went to another website and ordered something. Until I receive what I wanted, it's not over. So when we looked at it from a DevOps perspective, 85% of the developers say that they understand that user experience is important. Obviously, they're designing the applications. And 95% of the mature DevOps teams focus on user experience. This is something that they know from, they can do the best application, interface. They can put it out. It could be the next, Uber, if you will. But if it's constantly crashing and constantly causing issues with every screen touch, the value of that application is going to decrease. So DevOps, a lot of times, the teams, they need to have the tools. So imagine taking your car into a mechanic, which is kind of what you see here. You need to have the right tools to go in and fix something. And if you don't, then you have to figure out who are you working with as a vendor or a third party that can actually come in. So when we look at these statistics, we saw that 57%, over half of the DevOps teams, didn't have an application performance monitoring tool that showed them a dashboard, showed them one single score that encapsulates all areas from stability, performance, to resource utilization of what's happening. And 67%, even though they measure the front end, let's say they know that their application is crashing, they can't tie it back to the line of code that is causing it. And 61% of the developers are blind to the end-to-end process of monitoring. Again, it goes back to from the minute that interaction starts to the minute that the user walks away, we need to be able to measure that. So what's wrong with the tools today that are in the market? There's a lot of things that we see it in our competition for us. We see it as ourselves when we're interacting with these application tools. You see a lack of integration, and nobody wants to have a standalone solution that doesn't integrate with their other products, because that's important to a business. They don't want yet another thing to monitor. They want it to be a seamless integration. They see limited functionality. It shows you the issue, but really doesn't tell you how to fix it. And I know a lot of you have probably encountered the same thing I have, where I'm using something on my laptop, it keeps crashing, there's an issue. I take it to my IT team and say, look, this keeps happening. They have a hard time replicating the issue, or it doesn't work. Within Outpulse, and as Udi will walk you through, it's a very easy submission. It walks you step by step to what happened and down to the line of code that's causing the problem, okay? So I believe there's a polling question right now. Rocky?
Right. let's bring up the second polling question, Terry. So, which of the following technologies in your organization is using to capture application response time? So, are you using synthetic monitoring, real-time web monitoring, real user mobile monitoring, network sniffing, transaction tracing? So, I've been around the HP software space for a long time, so synthetic monitoring has seemed to be the most popular one that we've seen in companies for the longest time, and then real user monitoring would come in. And again, some of the older technologies, even prior to the BSM tools, we'd see network sniffing. And so be kind of curious to see now what people are using. So Terry, let's see where we are in the results of the poll. So yeah, just what I thought. Synthetic monitoring is still key at 34% of the respondents here. Real user web monitoring is about 20%. Real user mobile monitoring, still fairly new, I think, with a lot of organizations, is at 10%. Network sniffing still being used today after all these years, 20%. And transaction tracing, or trace route type things, 17%. So again, pretty even across the board, with the exception of synthetic monitoring, which has been a very popular method for years, BAC to BSM. So there you go.
Absolutely. And that's something that resonates within our business as well. When you think about it, synthetic monitoring is the first way you're going to start to measure, before, especially if your application hasn't been launched yet. You want to emulate the user's behavior before you actually have, you've launched your application and you have users interacting with it. So synthetic monitoring is very powerful. I agree. Okay. So what's required? What's required to deliver this delightful user experience? If you think about it, again, going back to my metaphor of a road trip, synthetic monitoring, with what we just talked about, is very important. If you think about getting into your car today and you're going to take a trip to a place you haven't been before, you either have your navigation into your car, or you have Waze or Google Maps, whatever it is. You want to see the road that's the clearest and the fastest, and ensure that there is no roadblocks or detours along your path. The second thing is real user monitoring, and that's to make sure you never get into a car for a 4-hour drive with your car, your gas gauge being on empty. You want to ensure your car is filled immediately with the needs that it has. And then transaction monitoring, that check engine light that can come on in your car, that says, it's not just you need more gas, and it's not just you need to fill your tires. There's something more on the back end that needs to be taken care of. Okay. So what is the solution? When we talked about the 3 teams that needed it and that interacted with the solution, the AppPulse solution delivers this cohesive end-to-end tool that will help meet the needs. So if you think about the IT ops person, okay, they want to ensure that they're upholding the SLAs that they have in place. If you think about it from the line of business, they want to see everything that's impacting their user experience. Again, we talk about the application being their face, their reputation on the line. And then the DevOps team want that one step down into the layer of what's happening. And so what you see here is the 3 modules we have within the AppPulse suite that delivers this powerful solution. AppPulse Active is our synthetic monitoring solution. AppPulse Mobile is the real user monitoring solution. And AppPulse Trace was just recently added in GA, is the 3rd leg, and we call it our baby tool, but it's really the powerhouse that will bring this suite together and enable the customer to measure through a 360 view of what is happening with their application. So when you think about this solution, Outpulse Active, Outpulse Mobile, and Outpulse Trace, we talked about integration. Within the solution, as users are walking through, and Udi again will demo this and show it, we've created an experience that doesn't show you in 3 distinct modules. It shows you an integrated, clean interface. And so when you're walking from Outpulse Active, you're clicking from Active into Mobile. You don't feel like you're leaving a tool and coming back in. It feels like one single solution. And these solutions are complementary to each other. They build on each other. When real user monitoring, we have a single aggregated score. We call it the Fundex. And it doesn't measure just the fun part of your application, but it measures the resource stability and performance of your application. And that tells you from the front end perspective what's happening. Now the Outpulse Trace solution comes in, and within the same powerful capabilities can tell you now, yes, you are losing people on screen 3 because it's taking 2 seconds longer to load, but it's not actually the application. You have it connected to this server, and here's why the crashes are occurring or the abandonment is happening. So I already saw this, and as you see, Active is that continuous real-time synthetic monitoring. The mobile solution is the user experience, and then the Outpulse Trace is that SaaS APM solution that's the back end that can measure through the tiers and help you isolate the problems down to the line of code or the specific log message that you're encountering. So Outpulse Active, let's talk a little bit about each of these. It gives you the visibility you need. It helps you to isolate the application, location, transaction, and the layer. And the most important thing is it's a single pane of glass for all the monitoring that you have. And the installation is about 5 minutes. And that's one of the things that we're very proud about within the solution that we've created within Outpulse. It doesn't take days or hours. Within minutes, you can take your application, wrap it, and be able to now measure your application and what's happening. Now,
Monica,
when we talk about—
I have a quick question for you.
Sure, go ahead.
So if a lot of your customers have the business process monitor, is there any tie-in with that tool to this technology, or is it basically a whole new tool?
So business process monitoring, the complementary, the new SaaS-based solution for that is our Outpulse Mobile, which is a screen I have on right now.
Great.
Okay. So one of the things, we want to talk about is measuring what's happening. A lot of times, a lot of things can go wrong at the same time, and we encounter this in our personal and professional lives. You want to measure what's affecting your customers the most. So let's just say you've downloaded a new application and it's crashing. Now, it's one thing to say, okay, this application is crashing, but as an application owner, you want to know, where was this person? What location was this person in? What iOS are they running, or if they're on an Android? What is the operating system they're running? Did they recently upgrade? And are they geographically sitting in an area where their network connection isn't as good? And so you want to be able to pinpoint and prioritize what the issues are. So from the minute you launch your performance to the minute that you see a crash on a screen, you see that, once you get below 50%, this is happening. You need to measure all of that. And to be able to follow the user actions, and again, Udi will walk you through this, but what Outpulse provides is a kind of a subway map of what's happening along the way for your users. Outpulse Trace, we talked about this a little bit, so I won't spend too much time. Again, it's that user to server correlation that helps you fix the issues on the server side. We've got Trace 360, which again, it's that full view, all aspects of the transaction execution, and then the log tracing. So delivering that correlated view down to the log message, okay? when we look at AppPulse, when we talked about the synergies in the solution, what you're seeing now is within mobile, you have an error that comes up. You have a failed HTTP request. Okay, you can go into Trace, and it isolates the root cause of what happened within that failure. And again, I won't spend too much time explaining these things because Udi will do a much better job than me, but you'll see in this first view of this interface how simple it is. You know, when you look at that, the purple hill, as an application owner or developer, you look at the high hills, and the highest hill is the one that's causing you the most heartache with your application. So why are we better? So when we talk about it as a team, we kind of follow this methodology. What do we do? How do we do it better? And which one of our customers have we done it for? And so when we think about the difference, the synergy that AppPulse provides is the end-to-end visibility, the continuous improvement, and then the reduced triage times. Again, when you receive this information proactively, we were just talking to an analyst yesterday, and he said to me, you know, one thing that's changed for us is when I'm actually on my application, it brings up a pop-up message and says, we've now changed you know, X, Y, and Z due to the issues we're experiencing. And he says, it's funny because I wasn't even experiencing the problem that they're mentioning. Well, the reason is it was proactively identified before your customer saw it. The testing and the monitoring was being done in a way that was taken care of before your customer got to, you know, go blast you on Yelp or an app store. Okay, so I think we have another polling question here.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I've got another question beyond that, but let's bring up the polling question. So the question is, what user experience metrics do you not capture today that you wish you could track? So is it application performance, application availability or crashes, insights into application usage and user flows, dropped transactions, resource usage, battery/data type information. So let's let people handle that one. But in the meantime, I've got a question for you, Monica. Can AppPulse be used by more than one organization?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we talked about, when I was talking about the three groups, you know, one of the things we want is to provide a common language. A lot of times when you have teams that are sitting in IT and you have a team that's working within the line of business, you want them to speak the same language. And what AppPulse does and has the ability to do is to connect these two teams so there is a common perspective and there is a common language. So we've seen AppPulse being used by marketing teams. We've seen it from VP of Ops, Central IT. And if you think about it, it's having, again, that single pane of glass that shows you what's happening, and for you to have that conversation to say, yep, here's what it's showing, and how can we go in and resolve it. And so you're not just basically talking at the other team, you're talking to them and with them, because you are now experiencing and seeing the same issues from a one single interface.
Great. So it's kind of bringing that DevOps approach to sharing and communicating different languages into something that everyone understands. So,
correct.
Great.
Correct.
All right, Terry, let's see what the results are from this survey question. So, what user experience metrics do you not capture today that you wish you could track? So 20% is app performance, 20% is app availability, crashes. The big one is insights into application usage and user flows. That's 43%. That's pretty big.
Yep.
And drop transactions about 11, and resource usage, battery/data, about 6%. So the bulk of it is that insight into application usage and user workflows. That's key. And I think the other two are probably more established criteria. Application performance, we've been doing that for a long time. Application availability. But the insights here, that's interesting. Great.
And it's very interesting, and it brings a smile to my face, because one of the things about this solution that I love is the user flows. And as you'll see, we call it a subway. It almost looks like a subway map, but it tells you step by step where the user was in your application experiencing something and what happened. So we measure that user flow, and we measure it in such a way that, you know, you could pull a non-technical person, as I said, from a marketing organization, which is where I'm from, and you look at it and you know exactly what happened without, you know, looking at code after code and trying to, you know, go through the weeds. So I absolutely agree with that. That user flow provides you that insight to then be able to go in and make those decisions. Okay. So I think this time I'm going to hand it over to you, Udi.
Thank you, Monica, and hello, everyone. Rocky, can you please make me the presenter? Thank you.
Terry will take care of that for you. Is that you, Udi?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I'll be sharing in a second. Let me know when you can see it.
I see the example. Okay.
We see
Okay.
the Advantage Online Banking screen, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Rocky. And hello, everyone, again. So as Monica mentioned, we have a full suite of products, of capabilities that provides you a holistic solution to address your user experience monitoring and management needs. We will use a demo to explain both the deployment and the architecture of Apples, and also to show you a live demo of how it looks like. So let's start with describing the example. So in this case, we have a bank. The bank, the demo would revolve around this bank's online website and mobile application. And this is a kind of standard bank, very kind of typical for today. You know, banks have both the more traditional websites and the typically new and modern mobile application. Written for the common, you know, mobile platforms, typically Android and iOS. In terms of how you know, the bank is organized, and again, this changes, varies a lot between different organizations, but you know, sample organization could be a mobile group with different teams for the different languages or platforms for the native mobile applications, and a web group, which is the more maybe the more traditional engineering team and development team, focusing on both the front end, the websites, and the back end services and the supporting functions for both the website and the mobile applications, as they share a set of core services. In addition, we have a DevOps services team, which is focusing mostly on the deployment aspects, the operation services for the different business units and the mobile and web aspects. And they work closely with the central IT departments, which are mainly focusing on the infrastructure and service, central service management and shared services. And last but not least, the NOC, the operators keep 24/7 shifts of looking at the current status of all the application and services provided by the bank. So as you can see, there are a lot of different people involved in providing those services. And again, coming back to the original question at the beginning of this webinar, there are different stakeholders which are responsible for the user experience or interested in different aspects of the user experience, and Apples aims to address the needs of all those different needs and all those different teams and requirements. So let's take a look at at how Apples is deployed in this specific example. In this example, we have, as mentioned, a mobile application and a web application. Users are logging in, just like any user would do to the application, utilizing the services and the APIs that are hosted on the bank, on the bank data center. And in addition, the bank is also leveraging a lot of APIs from partners for different services, different capabilities, which are consumed typically through a contractual relationship to provide some of the services, such as if it's a stock quote or it's some kind of fraud prevention service and so on. And now the bank also uses some of HP's APM solutions for the on-premise, such as Sitescope and RUM, for used by the central IT for monitoring some of the shared services. And for the online business or online banking application, the bank decided to utilize Apples. So they deployed the Apples Trace agents on the application servers, which support both the mobile and the web applications. They deployed Apples Mobile, which basically means they instrumented the native applications for Android and iOS, a very simple process. As Monica mentioned, we've put a lot of emphasis on making this process very simple and intuitive, and you can be up and running within minutes to start seeing value from your Apple solution. And last but not least, and as Rocky mentioned, one of the most common monitoring capabilities, synthetic monitoring, being able to proactively monitor the availability and performance of the services and the applications that you provide. It was also deployed using multiple locations where the key customer segments of the banks are in the world, and that basically describes the deployment. In terms of how the data is being consumed, so from each one of those solutions, the data is being reported to the HP data center. The main data store for Apples is HP Vertica, a highly scalable big data warehouse, where we can leverage both the scalability and performance and the analytics capability to provide some of the unique views we have in Apples. The data, again, is collected either from the customer devices, from their mobile devices, from their browsers. Apple's Trace actually injects some JavaScript directly from the application server all the way to the user browser to monitor the real user experience from the browser perspective. And as mentioned, from Active, or wherever the Active synthetic monitoring runs. And that is combined with data coming from the trace agents from within the data center of the bank. Now, all that data is accessible through reports and alerts as part of the Apple Suite user interface, and also can be accessed through OpenAPI for some of the common use cases asked by our customers. Now, as I mentioned, this bank also utilized the broader HP software portfolio. They also have OMI, and they have RUM and Sitescope, and they're using the central IT team and the NOC use the central location to integrate the different data sources for monitoring, both for the infrastructure and for the application and services, into a single unified bridge, and that's using Operation Bridge and the integration of Apples, the different Apples components into OMI. And with that, we'll switch to the demo. So,
I've got a question for you, Udi.
Yes, please.
While you're getting that ready, can AppPulse be used by more than? I'm sorry. Does Trace have all the features of HP Diagnostics?
It has. Okay, very good question. So Diagnostics and Trace operate in a similar space. Diagnostics has a lot of different capabilities that are not available in Trace today. And diagnostics is offered on-premise, while Trace is offered in SaaS. And while SaaS, for some of our customers, might seem a little bit frightening, or maybe the organization does not support it, we were seeing more and more customers that traditionally kind of got pushback for any SaaS solution. They're becoming much more open, and they see a lot of the value in the cost savings and some of the additional aspects that are associated with managing an on-premise deployment that they can now hand over to HP, and they find it more attractive. And besides that, for Trace, there are a lot of capabilities that do not exist in diagnostics. So at this point, they're definitely kind of complementary. There are different capabilities. Over time, once Trace and the entire Apple suite would go to an on-premise deployment, Trace would most likely over time would become the kind of the next generation diagnostics. But at this point, these are complementary products.
No, I agree. It's just like the time of people saying, I'm not going to buy on the internet. Look where that's gone. So I think people are getting more comfortable with SaaS solutions as the security issues are resolved, and people are feeling more comfortable that their apps are secure to the outside world. So great.
Great. Definitely. So excuse me. So let's start with the demo. So let's start in this case with the operator in the NOC get an alert. Again, looking at OMI, there's some availability issue with the online banking application. So he quickly logs in to Apple's Active to see to get the alert that he just got, to see what's going on there. He sees the Advantage online banking has an availability issue. He drills in. Just before I'll do a methodical pause here for a second, this UI that you're seeing is actually the unified UI across the different modules, Active, Mobile, and Trace, and you'll see it as I go through the demo. But we're currently starting with the Apple's Active module. So we're drilling down to investigate the availability issue. So first we're seeing an overview screen. This overview screen, and we can look at kind of different time frames, shows you in one unified view the top aspects of the application that you need to look at when you're trying to assess the status or the impact of the current problem. So first you're seeing the availability trend. That's that blue line over here. You're seeing the performance trend. That's the yellow line over here, and you're seeing any failure events, again, all on the same chart, with additional alerts being sent out on just below the chart. So with this, single view and the very large font numbers here, you get a good feeling for what is the current status of the application. And obviously, it's not 100% availability. There is a problem here which we want to investigate, and you can investigate it either through different recommendations coming here from this view to further investigate, or you can do it in whatever way you find more suitable for your specific application and methodologies. So let's take an approach that we want to look at overall the status over time, and we're seeing there a few different aspects. The admin login, that this is an issue. There was a ticket open on it that it's kind of not the real problem, so you can ignore it. But then fraud prevention, you're very surprised that it shows zero availability. So this transaction checks one of the processes of the banks, and it seemed to be failing and on an ongoing basis, which seems rather odd, and you want to investigate further. You also want to look, is there a specific geography where this is, that is significantly more suffering than others, looking at different time frames. So again, doesn't look like, so there was an issue if you look at the 12 hours time frame, but at this point, there's no specific location which is suffering. So again, you look and go to transaction isolation. And if you remember, the fraud prevention had a problem, so you want to drill in and investigate what's going on here. And what you can see here is the failure log. So all the failures, again, a reminder, this is synthetic monitoring, synthetic transactions running from multiple locations to test the availability of the bank services. And there's one error here which repeats, HTTP 500, and you can see it's coming from multiple locations for this fraud prevention transaction. And you can also see that there's a link here to trace the server error. So this is a great example where trace and active work in concert to make you more productive when you're trying to isolate the problem. So let's go ahead and investigate and see what's going on with this, with this specific failure. So I'm clicking here, and basically I'm drilling into trace, preserving the context in which I was, if you remember, looking at the fraud prevention transaction. So I'm actually looking at the specific instance that failed, and you can see it was just recently. And we're looking at HTTP status 500, as we saw in the Apple's active failure log. We can see there was an exception. We can see the response time was just over 2 seconds, not not significant, but again, we're investigating an availability issue. So we're looking for clues. And this view, which we call the Trace 360 view, is designed to allow you to very easily find the problem and the root cause for the problem that you're investigating. And it combines multiple aspects, whether around performance, exceptions, code execution, the flow of the transaction, and the log messages. And we'll touch on all of them, and I'll keep it short, so we'll make sure to cover all the other aspects in this demo. So very quickly, the user of Trace, the person investigating, sees here that there is an exception from an external service. So external service is unavailable, and the method that is throwing that exception is something around money laundering check. So need to see what this refers to. And he also sees the top part of this view is what we call the transaction timeline. Is a unique, actually patent pending view that allows you to quickly see where time is being spent. Now again, we're not investigating a performance problem, but you can see that the part that takes most of the time is a SQL query. You can see the kind of the host name and the details of the database here. And if we wanted, we can investigate further what this query is doing. And also an external service, we can see the IP and the URL that is being called. And those are the two external activities beyond the processing of the request. So this is the kind of the more high level view. Now, if we drill in, we're actually collecting code level information. So these are actual methods. In this case, it's a Java application. We can see where that exception was thrown, and we can go further down, see the SQL query. We can, if that was the, for example, performance issue we're investigating, we could have seen it. And same goes for any other exceptions or other code level aspects going on in the application. And again, this was we can see the flow. Maybe we start to get a feel of what's going on here. Let's go to another tab, the exception tab. If you remember, the exception has a message that the external service is not available. And again, it's starting to get maybe some more clues. We're seeing the stack trace here for the exception. So there was a failure with reaching out to some external service. And now it's, the person who is doing this may not be the person who wrote the code. It might be an application support, the DevOps team, or it could be the operations teams doing some high-level isolation. And they might not understand everything that is going on here. But when they go to the log, in a lot of cases, the log messages, when looked at with this specific perspective that we have in this view, meaning you're only looking at the log messages associated with this specific transaction. which specific instance of this transaction. So as Trace captures information about the performance, it also captures any log file messages which are written from the application server across the different components involved, putting it in one collated view, so you can very quickly see what the flow of messages throughout the transaction processing. And you can see here that there was some kind of a calculation of a fraud score that seemed to be walking past successfully. But then there was an external fraud check that failed, and we didn't handle that failure gracefully, and that was the reason for the call. So the root cause is that the external service is unavailable, and that we, the service was not really anticipating it, or we did not handle that gracefully for a user. So the operations team quickly notifies the application teams about this failure, which happens to be really an external service that the bank relies on, and they brought the service back up, and also the developer was sent to fix the code that handles this case of unavailability to make sure that customers are not impacted by this. So that was a drill down from Apple's Active to Apple's Trace. Now let's have a look at Apple's Mobile. Apple's Mobile, as Monica mentioned, is a holistic user experience monitoring solution for native mobile applications, native and hybrid mobile apps. And the main concept that helps organize all the information in Apple's Mobile is Fundex. And it's not only about how much fun users are having in terms of entertainment, but really how are they experiencing your application from performance aspects, from stability aspects, and from resources aspects. And you can see in this case, the average Fundex score, the user experience score, is 83 out of 100. You can see also the breakdown by different versions, and you can see that actually there was a version where the Fundex was higher. So there's some degradation here, which you would want to investigate. We have customers who are trying to keep their Fundex score close to 100 at all times. And as soon as something comes up, they kind of jump on it and fix it. And just a reminder, this information is coming from all the different mobile devices which are being monitored. So in this case, it could be thousands of users, could be millions of users. All of them send data to Apple's Mobile. So this is really a complete and comprehensive representation of the user experience. So we have here three main components which are causing issues: crashes, errors, and slow user experience. So let's start with the one that is impacting the most, and that's errors. So we'd like to investigate what's going on here. So I'm drilling down more on stability, and now I'm in the stability area in Apple's Mobile. You can see here both crashes and errors. I'll jump to errors first, and then go back to stability. I see that the money transfer is failing. So actually 2,000 users, which happen to be a round number, very actually surprising that happens in this demo. It wasn't supposed to be a round number, but 2,000 users are actually experiencing a problem, and that's a significant amount. So almost half of the people who are trying to transfer money are currently not able or are experiencing errors. And let's investigate what is the error that they're experiencing. So we're drilling in here. And what we're doing, we're actually looking at an instance. So we had, 1,000 Apple's Mobile collects millions of data points, and we know that the aggregated performance and the aggregated information allows you to prioritize and focus on the right things. But when you need to drill down and investigate, you need to look at instance level, especially in mobile, where there's so much variety in the mobile device and mobile operating systems. So in this case, we're looking at Samsung Galaxy. This was one failure. You can see, and you can jump to other failures and investigate. But we can see, and this might look familiar, we can see that there was a failed request here as part of the money transfer related to fraud prevention, which is, probably makes sense. It's the same problem that we saw before. And if we drill in, again, a similar integration between mobile and Trace, we're getting to the same view basically for that same problem. So that problem manifested itself both in this intake monitoring, and in case it wasn't fixed, it would show up for real users once they experience it. So this is this is kind of on a really a very short time, the integration with the mobile and trace. And I know, Rocky, that we're kind of almost at the top of the hour.
Sure.
So I think we have more to show and more to. I know people might have questions. I'm definitely willing to stay over. So I know I appreciate people's time. So we'll go to the closing slides. But if people want to stay over and ask questions, we'll be here to answer any questions you might have.
Great.
So I'm going back to the slides. So real quick. So the Apple's Active Mobile and Trace are all in GA. We just launched the suite almost 2 weeks ago. Again, Trace is the newest edition. We already have reference customers for all those solutions, and happy and enthusiastic customers leveraging and utilizing Apples on a daily basis. We're would be excited to let you know more about Apples. Please engage with us. Through the website, you can very easily start a trial and reach out through your relevant channel with your customers, through your sales person, or through the relevant partner, and would be more than happy to provide you more specific information for your organization. And with that, I'll hand it over to Rocky.
Great. Great job, Udi. Just a couple of comments personally is that I like the integrated suite approach. Very straightforward, very clean, where you can see the different components of the AppPulse suite. 2, I like that it can be launched from OMI, from that single pane of glass that we've been preaching since 1992. So continuing effort to keep doing that, so that's great. I think we have, once you go to the next slide, just want to talk a couple of things before we get into the questions and answers. So for everyone that is on the call today, if there's any chance that you can get to HP Discover, it's probably the best use of your time to spend 2 or 3 days getting everything you need around this technology if you're focused in the APM space to learn, get hands-on. We also have some deep dive sessions around this space as well that will be there the day before the conference starts on Monday afternoon. So if you're planning on going, try to reserve time to get there by noon Vegas time to sit in a 4-hour deep dive session so that you can get all your questions answered around the product. Next slide. I think there we go. So again, you can find a lot of this information. You'll be getting a recorded notice that the session's been recorded so you can reuse it again. So let's kind of cover some of the questions. I want to go to some of the customer-related questions. Judy, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at them, but I'll put them out there, and if we can answer them, great. If not, then they'll be answered at a later time when we get back. So let's start with, where am I here? There we go. Emmanuel had a question about what are the rules applied by HP about data privacy, since you're collecting potentially a lot of user data. Is that something we can answer quickly, or if that's something we have to answer? Sure. You can answer that, Udi.
You're on mute. Can you bring yourself off of mute?
Can you guys hear me now?
Now we can,
Perfect.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Apologies for that. So definitely we have a white paper explaining the security and privacy aspects We mask a lot of the personal information, so we're actually not collecting any specific personal information, but we are providing you all the information. We know that different security departments require different certifications. We have all the required documentation to explain exactly what we're doing and what type of data that we're collecting. So that's definitely, we have good answers for that we would be happy to share with the organization.
Great. Another one here from Steve. How does Real User Monitor and AppPulse differ from RUM? In other words, why would I have both? Is the AppPulse replacing RUM, similar to another next-gen app replacing an older product offering?
Yeah, I can take that. So RUM main deployment usage is through network sniffing, and that's not part of AppPulse. It has different different capabilities. In addition, AppPulse mobile data coming from real users from mobile device can be sent to RUM or to APM deployment on premise. And in that sense, RUM can act as a consolidator of kind of real user information, whether it's from the network sniffing capabilities or from AppPulse Mobile. So it's not a replacement, it's different usage. AppPulse Mobile has much more specific screens and views tailored for the native mobile apps use cases, while RUM looks at it more from a kind of data center perspective. But definitely there is room for both.
Great. I've got one here from Tomas. Does Trace use the same instrumentation as diagnostics in the app servers?
So the Trace agents have been kind of redesigned versus the diagnostics agents. If you look at it even from a size perspective, the diagnostics agents were sometimes over 100 megabytes, while the Trace agent is about 11 megabytes. So we've done a pretty significant, we put very specific constraints on what should and should not be in the agent. We also are using a new bytecode instrumentation library versus what we have in diagnostics. Having said that, the methodology of basically having a Java agent and instrumenting the key methods in the application based on what we know about the different frameworks is similar. So we're utilizing all the knowledge and IP that we've accumulated in diagnostics over 10 years. And we've just put it in a more concise package, more streamlined for the Trace use cases.
Yeah, I can see that. Yudi, here's one. Which technologies does HPE AppPulse Trace support?
Okay, that's a great question. So we support today Java, and we have .NET also in beta. So anyone who's interested in .NET will go to the public beta soon, but this is already working for for some. We have some very active customers in .NET beta. So anyone who is interested in .NET Trace, please reach out, and we'll be happy to add you to the program. And obviously, .NET will become GA within a few months. And we are working these days on a PHP agent technology, and also planning to support in the future Node.js technologies. So these are the key kind of application platform technologies that we're supporting.
Great. I've got one here for Monica. Is HPE AppPulse a replacement for APM? I'm not sure if Monica's still with us.
All right, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would say it's our SaaS-based solution. It's not a replacement. It's a complementary solution. On our roadmap, we do have the next generation of the APM solution that will be on-prem. So if we do have customers that are using the what we call the classic solution and they want to migrate over, there's certainly a way and a path to do that. It's not that the Apple solution has now been introduced and now APM and the classic tools are irrelevant and we're replacing them.
Okay.
We've done it. We've created a tool that optimizes the usage, and in the coming months you'll see the same version for the on-prem customers.
Great. So if I'm an APM customer, I don't have to worry that it's going away anytime soon.
No, and if you are an APM customer and you are ready and believe that your business can move over, I would highly recommend it. You're going to see a different experience, but no, you don't have to worry that the support is ending and that we're no longer going to be supporting them.
My understanding is by leveraging the AppPulse solution, it becomes more streamlined, much more efficient, and easier to use than some of the struggles we may have had with BSM. So
absolutely,
it's good to know that there's options. I got one for you. How does AppPulse Trace collect data for users' browsers, from users' browsers?
Sure. So the way AppPulse Trace achieves that is by trapping, or think of it as every time the application server provides a response that includes HTML, our trace agents detect that and inject some JavaScript, a small JavaScript snippet into the response. The response gets loaded in the browser, in the user browser, in all the users' browsers, and then that small JavaScript code that runs connects to something called Navigation Timing API, which is a standard across all modern browsers, that provide us the visibility that we need into the user experience. And that information is sent out, so no personal information, just that performance and availability information collected by that code is sent over to AppPulse from the different browsers.
Just a couple more. I think we're done. How long does it take to deploy AppPulse?
So I can take that one. So we have, as we mentioned, 3 different modules. Each one of them can be deployed within minutes. So obviously, synthetic monitoring depends how how complex and verbose you want to be in your different transactions and how complex the transactions are. But you can be really up and running within a few minutes. You just want to starting with a simple. Are you able to go to the website? And then are you able to log in? And then as you add more capabilities, take you a little bit of time to record the script. But we are using all the the industry leading capabilities of our load testing brothers on the ADM side of HP software. So it's really very simple and intuitive to record those scripts. For mobile, just a few minutes of instrumentation, no code changes required, no, don't need to involve any external parties to do it. You can just do it, and the only thing is if you want to see real users and not only test users, you need to put it out there in production and basically on the app stores for users to start downloading it. And last is for Trace. Again, within minutes, we put a lot of emphasis on the onboarding experience of Trace and all the other products as well. So you could be up and running within minutes. Obviously, if you need to deploy the agents on hundreds of servers, you'll need to run a script to do that. But again, all of these solutions can be started with in a self-service fashion over the web. You can try it out and see value really quickly.
Just a couple more and we're done. Can AppPulse be utilized in both performance testing environments as well as in production? Assuming yes, and is additional license required for this?
Sure. So definitely can be used both in production, pre-production environments. No additional license is required. So we don't have a separate license for kind of load testing use cases for versus production monitoring. But the trace solution is licensed by OS instance, and every OS instance that you're currently monitoring would require a license. So you decide how you want to use them for load testing or for production monitoring, but it's the same license, and it could be kind of floating license. So if you can start using it for load testing, and then you can the next day decide that you no longer need it and start using it, that same license in production monitoring.
Great. Also, with multiple applications, how does AppPulse separate monitoring of each app in both production and testing environments?
Okay, so I didn't have a chance to go through the entire flow of screens for Trace, but we have the concept of applications in Trace, and actually in all the three modules, the key entity of the top level entity is an application, and every Trace agent belongs to a specific application, and you can have for example, online banking production versus online banking staging. Those would have different different agents associated with it. And you can do the same with the with active, with mobile, and active.
Great. Does AppPulse synthetic transaction monitoring as good or more robust compared to BSM?
So here's the very nice thing. So if you already have scripts developed either by kind of the load testing team or functional testing team, or for your existing BPM, BSM deployments, those can be used by AppPulse Active. So it's the same. So the replay engine is based on the same technology. It's fully compatible, and from that perspective, it's the same. Powerful capability that really no other vendor can match in terms of number of protocols we support, the size of the community with a lot of best practices and a lot of templates that you can leverage. So definitely, it's the same powerful capability.
Great. Last question, Udi. Does this replace SiteScope as a solution?
Definitely not. So it's complementary. So the capabilities of SiteScope are not, are not included in as part of the AppPulse suite. So it's definitely we see SiteScope as a very important product. A lot of it, we also saw. I didn't focus on that for the demo, but definitely for that bank and for a lot of our customers, SiteScope is a critical tool to help get the full picture for the application from more high-level perspective, whether it's focusing on the infrastructure or specific services or specific custom metrics that are important for that customer. So it's definitely not a replacement for SiteScope. Again, it's a complementary. SiteScope could be a complement product to really provide the full aspects of the application performance monitoring. So AppPulse Suite is focusing mostly on the user experience. Typically, SiteScope is focusing more on the kind of other backend aspects, which are not necessarily user experience. Yes.
Great. All right. Well, that's great. This presentation will be recorded, so everyone that registered will get a copy of the presentation along with the questions. And at this point, we have to leave. Again, thank you. Great presentation, everyone. Great questions. And from a Vivint perspective, we'll see you on the next call. I know there's one question here. I don't know if we can answer it, but what's it cost?
So actually, you can look at the website we have the pricing for the express packages for the different products available on our website. So if you go to sas.hpe.com, and you look for the three Apple's products, you can see their pricing tab. You can see the actual prices there. So again, these are the express packages. Obviously, if you have a larger deployment and you want an enterprise quote, we would be more than happy to to better understand the need and provide the relevant price point for your organization.
Great, Udi. Monica and Udi, thanks today. We are done.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Rocky.
Rocky.
And thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks.